thanks everyone for joining part 2. I am so excited to learn further information about how to better support not only my own child, but other students as we learn tonight the second part about getting in charge of getting around and being an active participant and absolutely partaking in you getting around as a youth. So welcome back again, Cindy and Kathy. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. All right, Cindy, should we just dive in?
Dive in, Kathy.
All right, let's go. I'm so excited to see all these comms on here. This is cool. I'm watching the chat. All right, let me see if I can get all my buttons to work. Okay, so we're going to start again as we did last time with the idea of heading out the door as an active traveler and what you need to be prepared for. We talked last time about skills and different ideas for skills that could be worked on. And today we'll talk a little bit more about our goals for tonight are to look at some activities that can be excuse me, one second, got to move something around here. Some activities that can be practiced with a young adult to help kind of come up with those independent travel options to develop the skills for that. To identify, we'll also identify a progression of skills that are typically needed for young adults to become independent travelers when they're a non-driver or an active traveler, as we like to say. And then we also want to try to recognize some ways for young adults to share in the responsibility as an active passenger or a co-navigator. I just want to make double sure that okay, here we go. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll try to get to those as well. Let's see. All right. So active traveling. We have a couple of different options when it comes to, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm like getting really moving some things around. Okay, we have a couple of different options when we're looking at active travelers. And so there's, personal travel is that non-vehicle travel, like walking or cycling, or, if you're really super talented, you might rollerblade or scooter all over the place. But typically we're thinking of walking and cycling. And then it moves into rides with family, rides from family or friends. Some students may start there, start with personal travel, then move into that accepting rides from family and friends. And we talked a little bit about that last time. As you move into adulthood, you may look into hiring a driver where you'd have to come up with a contract for that driver. And it would be, kind of like a personal hire there. And then thinking about, we're going to touch a little bit on taxis and, of course, paratransit, which is more door-to-door shared ride, it's like some places call it special transportation or special transit. It's typically affiliated with public transportation in the local city. And of course, we all know that there are about rideshare requests, and those are getting more and more popular, Lyft, Uber, et cetera. And, those are getting a lot more popular to the point that now at airports and events, we have specific areas where those ride shares are picking up and dropping off. And then, then there's mass transit, bus, train, subway, whatever public transportation is available in the area that you are. And so, and then, you'll want to make, and typically we're also going to talk about the idea of having what your most likely option is a plan A, but then also what's plan B, or how can these interconnect to meet the needs of active travelers. Okay.
And so on those, I think there were six or seven options that Kathy and I are going to talk about. Each of the slides are going to kind of show their pluses and minuses. So
Yes.
There's always a trade-off on any form. I can, there are positive things to know about it, and then I need to keep in mind the things that aren't so positive. And we know for everybody on the Zoom, depending on where you live or where the student is that you're wanting to practice this, not all cities have taxis or mass transit. But I used to live rural, and in any size community, there would be at least 3 options. And that's what I want students to feel, is that I do have a choice in this. And I grew up in Kansas and biked a lot there. Not so big cities. It was much easier to do. When I moved, like here in Austin, I love getting on my bike. I do it on like early Sunday morning or a real close errand. I get to choose when I go. That, you know, physical activity feels good, that I'm doing that healthy. And it lets me just be really in charge of the order of errands I'm doing or direction I'm going. And same with walking, where I get to decide when I go. And the negatives of that, I think anybody would say automatically is, okay, Kathy and I were just talking about, it's 100 degrees in Texas and it's going to be 100 degrees for 4 months. That's a tough time to be out, but I just do it early in the morning. So you're adjusting your schedule if that mode of travel is what's going to work for you or your student, to be using that as an option. So, and we don't want to read through every bullet. You guys have this handout information, but, and it depends on, I bike close to home. You want to be aware of the surroundings. And because finally Austin put in more bike lanes, it's easier to do. So I know my sidewalks, and I have, I think Kathy and I both joke, we call ourselves the bag lady, because when you are an active traveler, it's not just one bag, it's depending what I'm doing and which bag is it that's going to suit that day for me getting around. And that's especially true when I'm walking, because I want it to be comfortable. So
For sure.
next one.
Okay.
And rides from family and friends. We did talk a little bit about this, because I think especially for teenagers, this would probably be the most common. So it's really familiar. And that's what's good about it. It's familiar, it's comfortable. I know the person I'm in the vehicle with. And the you know, the you'll have space to carry things. But I think sometimes that can become, I remember, you know, if you want to ask a parent, hey, can I go to the mall? And there's been tension in the household because you didn't clean your room or you didn't get the dishwasher emptied or whatever it was. That can make it kind of awkward for, am I going to be able to, is that a comfortable situation to be requesting a ride from that person? It can get awkward when the schedule changes or the person needs to cancel, and you know, a family member or a friend who says, hey, I can't do it, and it can sometimes add some tension in there. So I think it's just, we'll talk a little more about hiring a driver, but real clear on the request and asking the person who's providing the ride, if there's any change, please let me know as soon as possible, especially if you're needing to, you're relying on that as a way of getting where you want to be. Scanning this. And that sometimes it can be, if it moves into too many times requesting a favor for a ride, that sense of being a burden, and whether that word is used outright or it's a subtle thing. I talk with students about your swapping a service or you're helping out in some way so that you are doing something as well to help the person who's providing the ride for you. Any other comments on that, Kathy?
No, I mean, other than just, kind of agreeing about that, sense of being a burden and navigating that, some people really do want to do it, and help and it's on their way and it's not a problem, but you can still, sometimes just, you may still carry that with you, that sense. And so helping, empower our students and children to have those open and honest conversations, so that nobody is, that everybody's on the same page and everybody feels like they can accept or decline either the offer or the request, so that that everybody, maintains their kind of level, their self-esteem on that. Cause I know that can be, it can be, or I have experienced that is difficult for me to carry that. And I don't think anybody's intentionally making me feel that way. It's just, I think that I just carry it with me, so.
And that's, yeah, open communication on it is probably the phrase we need to add on this slide.
Yeah.
I think that's well said. So some of the
sorry, I skipped
types of reciprocation, and that's, for each of the students, what is a task, the different talents that students have. If an older a neighbor who says, hey, yeah, I can run you to the mall, so let's swap out. Can you watch my kids for an hour? Whether it's childcare, lawn care, helping with tech, if you make fabulous macaroons, it's just that different types of the fancy word reciprocity for when I want to do something to say thank you to the person who's providing the ride. Just a way to say thank you for that. Next one. And that's still me. Yep, that's me.
Yep.
I have been able on occasion, and it was work related when I was in Nashville, to hire a driver. And it's as if it's door to door. It's usually just you. And I think the biggest thing is figuring out how to find drivers that you can hire. I had a couple of different drivers who were, they participated in retired chapters of like freight drivers, and they liked driving. So it was a good match. I think some of the other, because you're setting up the agreement with that person, just as in hiring anybody, you want to, check their driving record because that's available. You want to feel safe with that person, get recommendations. If it's their vehicle that's being used, that the vehicle is in good condition. It's just those kinds of terms, factors in an agreement that you're checking on. And that next one, some examples of what may be, and I think it's truly a good idea if it's a neighbor, if it's a parent who works from home and has a more flexible schedule, if it's a college student whose mornings are open. So looking for those kinds of people who might be able to be hired as a driver. And then the next slide shows some of those factors to think about. Like how payment would be set up. Is it by the amount of time or the amount of miles? The minimum amount of time for either person to cancel a trip. It's kind of like when you pay for daycare, that even if your kid is homesick, you're still paying for that day. So if I've set up a ride with an older neighbor, and we've agreed to that, I'd need to follow through if I gave really short notice on canceling. Would I be able to haul groceries or bulky items? And then I have a part in helping set up the route for where we're going, or the order of errands that we're accomplishing. And then what's too late for driving or what's too early for driving. So some of those are just things to think about, and it's a simple written down agreement so that both sides know what we've set up.
Awesome. So the taxis are still around. You know, I probably more so still in bigger cities. I don't typically use taxis anymore, but I have. You know, they're available at a variety of hours, and you know, you can choose your company and potentially your driver. Sometimes, depending on your place of employment, they may offer discount fares or travel vouchers if you're doing, you know, work travel. I've had that happen before at my job. And you know, again, it's just kind of balancing that efficiency, you know, and the cost, because it could be, you know, a higher cost if there's a base fee. And, you know, again, there's always an issue there are always considerations for safety and, you know, the familiarity with the area, and could be quite a high turnover in drivers, which is just interesting because I think of all of this in comparison to the rideshare. And so, I mean, yeah, to rideshare apps. And so I'm thinking like, oh, well, this has been in existence for a while. I
want to make a comment on taxis,
yeah.
Kathy.
Go ahead.
When I lived in Kansas and more smaller towns, in some cases, and that was more, I think even when I go back and visit, taxis are still there, so not as much rideshare. And the good thing was, because a lot of them are independent contractors, you don't have to go through dispatch. They can give you their number, their card, and it's not quite like, well, it is kind of hiring a driver, I guess. You're paying that person, but it's consistent. Especially if you like the driver, you trust them, and they've been doing this driving in the town for a while, then they're likely to continue. Where I think in big cities, there is big turnover on taxi drivers. Yeah.
Rideshare, something that I feel like I've become a lot more familiar with just in the last 5 years. There's an app for that. You know, so I mean, rideshare is just, it's so funny how we've gone. I've seen memes online about how we've gone from, you know, don't ever get in a stranger's car to now it's like, let me call the stranger and request them to come pick me up right now. I'll even show them my picture and I'll just hop right in. But you know, it's nice that, you know, with the apps, they show the driver where they are in real time. You can see if they're going to go to X pickup spot or this one or that one, and kind of accommodate in the middle. I love in the apps how I'm able to contact the driver and say, hey, I'm actually going to be in the front of this building. The address is taking you to the back or whatever. My friends with albinism and I joke a lot about our rating system. So now it's who has the higher number of stars in the Uber app. And so that's kind of a unique, funny thing that we do, but you can rate the driver and you can also be rated. And it's affordable and super fast. Of course, the biggest concern with ride shares, I think that I hear from parents and family is that safety piece. And so, I think of things like, actually my son is now really, and of course I always take the lead because I'm, the adult, but he really likes to help me confirm the license plate number. And he likes to look for the kind of car. We'll confirm the driver's name, and I can monitor the route. I can share the route with people. I actually can, the apps are becoming more advanced in that there's a variety of different ways to call for help within while you're en route if you need it. And then it's really great, you can also connect with drivers about specific things that they can do to help alert you when they're arriving. I love how in the Uber app and in the Lyft app, actually there's like a special screen that has a color on it. So you can hold your phone up and out, and that person kind of knows that you're waiting for them. And there's security pins you can put. So it's really just I think safety has become a big priority for that now. And so I feel even safer in them than I used to. I still set limits on myself when I travel and things like that for my own personal feelings, but it's great. And then Paratransit, we shared a little bit about at the beginning. It's kind of special transportation or door-to-door public transportation. I use this as well. Basically you're door-to-door with a driver and or other passengers, so it can be a shared ride. Sometimes you don't know how long you're going to be in the ride because you don't know how many people they're going to drop off and pick up before you get to your destination. It's a very low cost, and you can schedule a subscription for frequent rides. So during the school year, I have the same rides booked for every morning and afternoon, so that I can, I only have to do that once. I set it up and then it's set up for the year, and I get the same pickup window every day. But again, the cons, you can wait a while. I mean, they give me a 30-minute pickup window, and so I could be waiting for a while. It's a shared ride, and you have to schedule before 5 p.m. So if your son has a fever at 8 p.m., you're not getting a doctor trip the next day on Paratransit. You might have to, plan B. And you can't really change your route or add stops, or predict, how quickly you're going to get to your destination with that. Cindy?
Taking the bus is definitely sharing the ride, depending on how crowded it is. Something I really do appreciate about the bus is, especially when you're using it routinely, like anybody commuting, you probably see the same cars on the road because you're heading there with them. But I'm getting familiar with passengers that I may visit with. I have a couple of favorite bus drivers. So there can be a sense of community. And gives me, I can get a lot of reading done depending on how long the route is. And easily, I think people would say the biggest frustration is when the bus gets off schedule, whether it's thick traffic like we have in Austin, or maybe a bus has broken down, so you're waiting an extra 25 minutes on top of the 15 that you already had. That can be frustrating. And we had talked in the previous presentation about always having plan A, plan B on how I'm going to use my wait time. Is my phone fully charged up so I can do stuff on it, or I always carry a book, or I'm going to get some phone calls called up. So it's when the bus, it's not a perfect system. They try, and I always have to remind myself, the driver wants to be on time. They're not trying to be late. But depending on your city, on how reliable it is. And Kathy and I both do a lot of bus travel. And then kind of from city to city, not within city, but commercial bus lines such as Greyhound, Megabus, I think has been around. I don't know if it's as long as Flixbus is another one that I know is in different states. I recently heard about Hitch, that I haven't used it yet, but another friend who's visually impaired has and likes it. It can be a really affordable trip. Depending, especially megabus scheduling far enough ahead. I went from Atlanta to Cincinnati for $10. And it was a very relaxed ride. Or you'd want to make sure that you know where that station is, the pickup and the drop off, because even Greyhounds don't have stations. I think like they used to. It can just be a drop off in a parking lot, and knowing that ahead of time is going to help a whole lot with that feeling of safety. So doing the research to find out, but there are definitely options for going city to city. And Greyhound is the one that's most known for more rural, where things like Megabus, Flixbus, I think of it as college town to college town. There tend to be a lot of college students on those. So we are close to our last minute, and kind of summing up what kind of both sessions is thinking of goal setting for that student who is going to be an active traveler. What would be some goals? And we had talked about, how do you practice this with adults, whether family members or adults who want to, hey, I want to try Megabus. So figuring out a way to actively be practicing this and not waiting until the student is 18 or 20. And then building those skills. And the previous presentation, there was a list of skills that students can work on. And I think especially it's that responsibility that as an active traveler, it's not just I'm waiting for my ride and I want to be part of the co-navigator. I have responsibility to help out with whatever form of transportation I'm using and paying attention to my route. So the last, I said, I'm going to put a link in the chat that gives information. We haven't talked about bioptic driving, but I know just with the travel topic in general, we have a set of online courses in our TSB VI online learning, and I'm going to put the link in chat for being able to get to those. And we thank you very much for letting us be here this evening.
Yeah, and please feel free to reach out to us. Our emails are on the bottom of this slide that's here. If you have any questions or specific things that you were wondering or didn't get addressed during the session.
I cannot thank you both enough for all of the great information. Again, it has been amazing to hear pros and cons, considerations, and things that may not have even been on your radar as a parent and as a professional. So thank you both for all of your information, and again, being willing to connect with others outside this webinar. Thank you both.
You bet.